Sir, we are in line, sir. Yarani, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, greetings everyone. Happy morning. Hope you all are good and safe. And I'm Yalini, a first year undergraduate from the Department of Computer Science and Business Systems. So, we all have assembled here virtually on account of National Technology Day 2021. And of course, technology is one of the most eminent resources we have for us, and a day to endorse our pal. I meant technology has come today. And currently, we are in this pandemic, and now technological innovations are much needed to overcome and get back. And yes, technology cannot prevent the onset of the pandemics. However, it can prevent the spread, educate, warn, and empower those on the ground to be aware of the situation, and noticeably lessen the impact which is ought to occur after pandemic. And so, innovation, which is our Chennai Institute of Technology, is being forward. So here is our principal, Dr. A. Ramesh. Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
I ask you to add some words here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks, respected guest for today's function, Mr. Sivan Ammamuthu, Market Unit Head and Delivery of Operations, Capgemini, faculty colleagues of Chennai Institute of Technology, students of Chennai Institute of Technology, and other participants. A happy morning to all. First of all, at the head of the institution, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our guest, Mr. Sivan Ammamuthu, to Chennai Institute of Technology and also to this wonderful program. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Today we are celebrating the National Technology Day. In fact, the May 11th of every year is earmarked as National Technology Day. This day is celebrated to honor the achievements and contribution of Indians to science and technology. In fact, this day serves as a reminder of India breaking into the allied group of nations with nuclear weapons. On the same day, that is on May 11, 1998, India has conducted 3 successful nuclear tests at the Indian Army Pokhran test range under the leadership of the then Prime Minister Vajpayee. And the test was carried out by a team of scientists from DRDO led by our late President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. On that day, the then Prime Minister has announced that from now onwards, the May 11 will be celebrated as the National Technology Day. So every year we are celebrating, and this year, every year is celebrated with a particular theme, and this year it is celebrated with the theme Technology for Sustainable Growth. Dear participants, you know very well, technology is inevitable in our everyday life. We cannot imagine our day without the technology. Technology brings number of tools together to promote development and making tasks easier and solving many problems of our mankind. Technology plays a greater role in everyday's life in our mankind. Technology not only helps to improve our education, technology also helps to lot of development in all the field like agriculture, health, medical field, and every field you take, technology plays a very, very important role. So as a student of engineering and technology, you also have to do some activity on this particular day to contribute to our nation. So I take this opportunity to wish you all on this technology day and leave the session for further proceedings. Thanks for the opportunity.
That was great, sir. And technology, a good buddy for everyone, right? So, which gives us hands to learn, attain knowledge, gain exposure, etc. and etc. And to get to know many more stuffs about regarding the same from our esteemed chief guest and speaker of the day, Mr. Sivan Ammamuthu, who is a senior delivery executive with a 25+ years of global experience in IT business strategy digital transformation, services and operations across multiple geographies, which include the United States, Accenture at UK, Emirates IT at Dubai, and of course IBM India. And adding to this, he also takes the role of Vice President, Chennai Delivery Center Head, and board member at WeCare, and the head of delivery and operations at Capgemini, and he is a certified Capgemini University qualified facilitator for EMs. On behalf of our entire team of Chennai Institute of Technology, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
And also a happy National Technology Day as a tech student. And on behalf, and I take pleasure handing over the session to you. Go on, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Yarini. Thank you, Professor Ramesh. Thanks, Venkatesh, Professor Venkatesh, for giving me this opportunity. So, I learned a lot about Technology Day. Probably we always read in the newspaper. I heard a lot today, and I think it is very relevant for each one of us as students, as professors, as people who are in the service industry. We need to understand what is today's technology and what is going to be tomorrow's technology. And the essential element for all of us is only learning, continuous learning. And that is the only dimension which will keep us alive all the time, right? And it is very, very relevant. So what I will try to cover for today, maybe for next 40-45 minutes, will explain what's happening in today's technology world, right? And there are a lot of layers in the technology. I will try to give a brief so that you all get a view of it, and also how you can make it happen. What are the essential elements that you should be having so that you are able to succeed along with technology? I think that's the second element. And there are also a lot of uncovered areas, right? I heard a lot of first year students are there, second year students, and the third year students. I think it's much more relevant for you, the vast area where you all can focus on and bring in value to the entire IT industry throughout the world, right? So with that, let me get into my presentation. Just give me a moment. Yeah, Ernie, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, good. So this is what we will try to cover today. My name is Sivan, and I hail from Chennai. I have traveled many countries, around 20-25 countries during this experience that I have gained, and I am back to Chennai. So I started in Chennai, went around the world and back in Chennai, and it's a lot of learning that I have got, which I will share it with you during the next set of slides. So what's happening, right? So a lot of things are happening today, but there are three elements that we need to understand. One is predominantly from an information technology driven, which is the technology area that many of you are in, and probably I am also into the same area as well. One is that is called as the IT driven, which is based on the technology landscape. We talk about a lot of languages, operating system. Those are the areas. And we know in the earlier days it was mainframes, AS400, IBM AS400. But today, we are into a lot of areas, right? For example, Python. Then we also talk about Kafka. A lot of areas have come in the recent days, right? So that's a technology, how it has evolved over a period of time, and I'm very sure it will further evolve, right? It's not going to stop with Python, or it's not going to stop with Java full stack. It's just going to continue, and it will evolve as we speak. But what is important, what is driving this IT, right? What is predominantly driving the IT is the business, right? The business could be in terms of the commercial business, it is a public business, or it could be a non-profit business. But essentially, the business is what drives the technology, it drives the IT sector. The fundamental reasons why we look at the business component is any COO, any CXO for that matter, will look at, okay, how can I bring down my cost? That's one thing. How I can be much more effective than what I am today, be it in terms of new products that I can bring in, or new technologies which will help me in enhancing these products And the other critical component is there is a leakage, right? When I talk about leakage, for example, what we had developed 20 years back and what is required today, there will be a lot of gaps, right? And that's where a lot of leakage will happen. If I give you a very simple example, when you run the code, there is a difference between running a code through 10,000 lines of code versus 1,000 lines of code, right? That you all can relate to very quickly. How you can achieve from 10,000 to 1,000 is doing a lot of optimization in your code. You can drive it through technology or different language, or it could be more of an optimization. And those are the leakages. And similarly in business, from a commercial standpoint, there will be a lot of leakages, which is pulling our revenue down, which is our dollar, and also what is the money that we are making, which is the profit. There will be a lot of areas where we are losing out today. So the business person will always look at how you can bring the leakage significantly down. And the other key element is whenever any company started with an IT transformation, they would have started with what existed at that point of time. But eventually, as we are progressing, there could be a lot of versions that would have come in. There are a lot of newer technologies, newer packages. So it is important that we align all of these applications to a standardized platform, which has its own benefits, right? And today, the way business is looking at is, how we can do a service very easily for the customer, right? How they can do it themselves, right? That's a self-service component. These are the critical elements that the business drives the IT. At the end of the day, it is always customer. What is the kind of focus that we are getting into the customer? If you look at some of the recent examples that we are looking at today, earlier we had to go to a lot of the shops in your streets to buy your groceries, right? Your vegetables. Then it later changed into a bigger set of department stores, bigger set of vegetable shops. But today, if you look at, you can order a lot of things based on what you want. So that's the change in the way the customer is looking for, right? So it is an experience. And how do we retain the customers, right? Unless you are going to change, then you are going to lose the customer. That's extremely important. We need to look at it. Obviously, social media, hyper personalization, right? Sometimes its personalization is too high, and that is the need for today's, and especially for the generation of today. I think they need very personalized attention in terms of meeting their demands, meeting their needs, and meeting their family, right? So that's what it is. And obviously, it's all driven by data, and the data can give you a lot of insight. And so now the market is looking more at a customer-focused market, right? So these are the three things that we should remember, and this will continue to evolve, right? What is today probably may not be there tomorrow, and that will also change over a period of time. Okay. Let's talk about what is it as a student, what is it that you should think about, right? One, think about from a technology perspective, what is happening, right? So it is in terms of where we are going, how we are going, what are the critical elements that you should keep in mind, right? So that is the first thing that you should remember. The second one is, it's not only about technology, how you are going to adopt the technology, right? Say, for example, you can have a nice motorcycle in your house, but if you are not going to use your motorcycle, it's obviously going to be waste over a period of time. Or if you don't use it properly, then you are going to get hurt, and then that is also a problem. So two elements you should remember. One, what are the technologies that are available and how you should look at them. The second key element is, how do we adopt them, or how do we implement them, or how you get prepared to be part of that, right? Those are the two elements. Let's talk about technology trends. I will talk about the changes, right? We talked about changes. The changes is happening in all aspects of life. Specifically on this technology day, I want to tell you that the technology has gone through a massive change in terms of how it was towards where it is, and primarily focusing on the needs of the customer, the needs of the client, right? And so the client can be an organization, the client can be you as an individual, or it can be a family, or it can be a group of companies, it can be anything. So what is happening today is everybody wants things very quickly, right? Nobody wants to wait for, okay, We are making a plan for today. We will take 2 years. Let us see what happens as an outcome at the end of the 2 year, right? I think those days are kind of gone. So now what people are looking for is, how can I see the outcome quickly? What is the turnaround time for me to look at it and implement it as part of the business? I think that is the sheer velocity of technological change, right? So that is driving the technology changes, and that's why we have seen so many languages popped up. There are so many advances that have come in the area of technology. That's one of the disruption that has happened in that caused the entire technology change. Right? The second one is the business challenges and opportunities. Right? So earlier it was people were used to doing certain things in a certain way. Now people are expecting that, how can I do this differently? One of the very simple example is, let's talk about this same webinar that we are doing. Right? If you just look back even 2 years or even 10 years back, it was done in a very typical way, and now it has gone multitude, right? So the business needs have changed. That's a very smaller example. And if you look at the way banks are operating today, right, it's all completely digital banking system. You don't need to go to any bank. So that comes with a lot of opportunities, that comes with a lot of technological changes as part of it, and that's an important thing that you should understand. The change is going to happen in all of that. So one is in terms of the technological change. The second one is going to be the needs that are coming from the business changes that are required. And what we see is not all the companies are able to meet or deliver to that speed, right? I think that is another very key element that we need to do, right? And how we can make that happen is, people like you need to understand what is happening in the business market. How do we change ourselves? How do we adopt ourselves in terms of the competencies? How do we upskill ourselves? Basically, train ourselves better to be there. So at the end of the day, it is very, very important that these all need to be done, but not in a very traditional way, and that is something called as the innovation, right? The innovation is nothing but whether you do a small amount of changes, which is the incremental change, or you need a leap factor, which is a huge change, right? And we have seen both of them. For example, some of the app that we have, there is always the incremental innovations that happen, and moving from a typical website to app itself is a big leap innovation that you can take it. And all this can happen only if you are all aligned in terms of going towards the technology, understand the technology, and we build our capabilities or competency towards that direction. Okay. All right. So I will try to skip some of the slides, but you can use it later. So one of the major innovation that we have seen is through digital, right? The digital, typically what people have seen earlier, it was in the IT industry, but if you look at today, it is part of every organization. Whether it is in institutions, everything happens online, right? And there are many things that are happening. If you come to the commercial side, you look at the aeronautical industry, you look at the financial services sector, or the telecommunication sector. Everywhere, I think it has gone very, very digital nowadays, and it is important that we understand it, right? If you are going to be a technology SME, it is important that you should understand what the business is expecting, what digital means, and how we bring that change, right? So that at the end of the day, you deliver what the customer is looking for. Okay. In summary, let's talk about few areas, right? The top areas, right, based on at least what we are looking at in the IT industry. One is artificial intelligence, cloud is the other area. Artificial intelligence, there are a lot of things that we can do with artificial intelligence, cloud, data, security, and automation. And then there are other areas also which are kind of emerging, but still it has not reached there. So let me cover some of the basic areas so that it will help you understand what is that trend that we are talking about. Right? So let's talk about artificial intelligence. Right? So I'm not going to read the slide. If you look at artificial intelligence, it's about, there is a way that we have been made to behave for a particular input-output oriented processing. Right? So now what we have done is, with a lot of technology, we are able to capture many of those as inputs, and then we are making chatbots or things like that to do for us. A lot of the processing will be done by them, and then it is given to the client, right? So that's the client or customer. That's a simple way of explaining artificial intelligence, right? So we talk about the virtual reality, for example, or augmented reality, for example. So there are many such examples that are there, and that is what is happening today, right? And we use that for a lot of our IT industry as well. No? So as we get into more of this, what we have seen is if you look at one of the very simple example is the inventory management is one example that you can look at. We study the buying pattern of all the customers, and we link it with a lot of the stores, and then the entire stores, whether it is in terms of inventory management within the store, or keeping the products in the appropriate places, or having an optimized sellable pattern, right? So all those are part of artificial intelligence, right? I'm just giving a simple example, for you to look at. Some of the complex examples that you can think of is our satellite communications, rockets, and things like that. Right? Lot of things are happening through this artificial intelligence. Right? One area that you all need to probably start thinking about is about neural networks. That's another area that's happening. NLP, all of that is currently today. Maybe you all should start focusing more in terms of advanced simulations, process automations, analytics, neural networks. Good. So that's in terms of artificial intelligence. Let's talk about cloud. Right. So cloud is a new term which has come in place. Earlier we always used to have. I don't know how many of you have seen. Probably it will come in your books. Right. The first set of servers what IBM built was very huge, like as big as the classrooms or double the size of classrooms, and then it became so small, right? Similarly, what happened is whenever we talk about cloud, there is the idea of moving a lot of the infrastructure to a place where you can access it faster at a much cost efficient model. I think that's how this entire cloud concept came into picture. Right? Predominantly what you see on the left side, right? So which is you had a lot of applications. We have seen applications like 1,000 applications in many organizations sitting on a lot of the servers. And then there is always a breach in terms of security, regulation violences, and a lot of areas or the barriers in the adoption. But eventually it has come in, right? And what happens is if you look at in the cloud, right, there are multiple ways in which we can look at. Probably it's not here. Whether it is a private cloud, whether it is a public cloud, or it is a hybrid cloud, right? So when you talk about private, it is very specific to the organization. Obviously, it comes with its own advantages, disadvantages, highly secured, highly efficient, but quite expensive. So that's the private cloud. When you move towards a public cloud, where you talk about the AWS, whether you talk about the Azure or you talk about the Google, they are in the public space. Cost-wise, it is effective, but it's sitting in some places centrally, and some of the clients may not like that because a lot of production data is there, sensitive data, client-related data is there. So people try to keep it in the private cloud, right? Or you can take a combination of that. But the advantages of moving towards cloud, right? It's going to be really efficient because it's not going to take your local space. Your speed to deliver is going to be extremely good. The transactional speed is quite good, and you can easily do a lot of automations and standardizations. Right? I think that's the if you unleash so many of those benefits. But what is important is, do we have the mindset to change towards it, right? And that's where you as technology experts come into place. Understand, what does the cloud mean? What is the benefit of it, so that you can go and tell either within your organization or to the client saying that, okay, these are the benefits and how we can do it. So try to understand the cloud components better. And data is extremely important, relevant topic that we see today. Third element, we talk about it. if I take the 2-3 areas, right? So a lot of data. If you look at, for example, most of the government organizations have a lot of data, which is a strength. The disadvantage there is you don't have all this data in one enterprise server, which is going to help you do a lot of analytics. I think that is a disadvantage. So what we are talking about in terms of data is how you are going to get all this data together, right? How you are going to bring all this data together from the legacy system. That is where we talk about the data migration, where you bring everything together. That's when you form something called as the big data or the data lakes. That's how you form all of them, so that you can easily do various analytics as part of it, and then gain lot of insights which will help you to make decisions out of it, right? So that's where it is. But the significant area that you may need to focus on is security, right? How you are going to secure this data, right? Because what happens, this data has a lot of personal information, right? So there are a lot of acronyms. For example, CCPA, that belongs to the California Consumer Privacy Act. So what is important is your personal data. So that is where whenever you go for any application, whenever you go into website, they will always ask that option saying that we are going to use your data. Are you comfortable, or are you okay, not okay, right? So those are some of the data aspects and the security aspect that we need to look at. And you also need to be careful. But there is a massive growth opportunity in the data space, right? Data and insights is a massive area that we should look at. And finally, we talked about the cloud, and obviously it comes with a lot of threats, a lot of opportunities as well. But what is important is understand how things are going to really help, right? We always talk about IoTs, right? We talk about cloud, moving to cloud transformation. While when we say it is quite easier, but the underlying layers are quite difficult to comprehend and deliver, right, and implement. So what is important as an individual, please understand how this entire cloud opportunities work, right? Maybe get yourself experienced and train yourself on either AWS or Azure or any one of the areas, so that you understand it better, and then see how you can work with the other operational areas, right? So that's where you take advantage of IoTs, where you can really translate some of the today's processes to a more of an IoT driven processes, right? And obviously the biggest advantage that you will get with this whole enterprise system is it's going to be digital, right? Nobody need to depend on any physical or going to a particular place to do anything. That's going to be the advantage. Speed and agility is obviously very, very big component in this digital transformation. And since it is driven based on a lot of these systems, right? Obviously, it is well governed. A lot of security aspects are there, and that's another area that you should watch out for. Okay, good. Automation is it's something which will be done faster, right? In other words, what is happening in today's business? Everybody expects that we should get more with less. What does it mean, right? For example, I would like to purchase more when I go to a shop, or I would like to purchase, let's say, a car. I want to buy a car. I want to get a very good car, but at a lesser price, with all the features, more features, less, right? I think that's the way the mindset is coming. The only way that we can deliver is how we can industrialize certain operational model. That's where the automation comes into place, wherever possible we can automate a lot of the things, which will bring down the operational efficiency up, which in turn will have a business impact, and it will also can bring down the cost. And it is also important that we can serve the customers faster, right? I think that's where the automation plays a very, very significant role here, right? We talked about artificial intelligence. I'm sure you also have a course on it, but it is important that we need to focus on automation, because that's a new area, and that has defined a lot of businesses completely in a very different dimension. So, and that can happen only if you mix the business ideas with the technology, right? I think that's where the automation comes into place. One of the examples that we see, right, which is a challenge in today's IT industry is whenever we run a project, we know that we are doing it this way. It takes 10,000 man days, but what we are always aiming to do and deliver to the clients is, how can I deliver for the same 6 months which I delivered taking 10,000 man days? How can I deliver with 8,000 man days in 6 months or even less than 6 months, right? So that's where the automation plays a very significant role. And for that, the key components are understanding the business needs, the aggressive needs, and understanding the technological changes, bring both of them together, which can make it as a success for automation, right? So these are some of the areas which are yet to be gone in detail, but by the time you guys come to your third year, final year, I can tell you that these would have taken up high steam in terms of quantum computing, blockchain, connectivity, or other immersive technologies, right? So those are all the various technologies. I gave a very huge landscape for you guys to understand it. But what is the essence to make it successful? That is what is the adoption, right? Four things that you need to understand. One, understand what the customer is looking for, right? Never think that whatever you are making the customer is going to buy, right? Then that's going to bring down your business. Always there is going to be a new customer expectations. The best way to look at is, you have to be in the customer's shoes to understand what they are looking for, right? So that is the first one, expectations. Second one, new products. The new products could be driven based on various expectations. Sometimes it also could be that the entire scheme of things in the world are happening, which are also kind of related to the new technologies, right? So those go hand in hand. So the new products could be in terms of business products. The new products could be in terms of package solution, right? And then obviously new technologies. The new technologies we talked about, for example, mainframes, whereas now you look at the recent happenings or Java full stack, for example, that's one thing that we talked about. And Python, for example, right? So there are many that are coming, and it is important that the more you get to know about the new technologies, understand it, and live with it, then it becomes easier, right? So that is the new technologies and new entrants. And if you look at 20 years back, we had only few organizations, whether it is in the retail industry, whether it is in the IT industry, like it was very few. But if you look at today, there are a lot of entrants. And probably you might have read in the newspaper also in the retail industry now, India-based Reliance is in the top 4A, right? Whereas it was always ruled by the Walmarts of the world, right? So that's always going to change. The new entrants are always going to come into place, and that is very important. So it's important that you understand the expectations, how the new products are going to work, how the new technologies are going to happen, and how we need to adopt them, and what are the new entrants in this market space. And those will lead the entire industry. And this industry is going very fast. All the industries are going at a very rapid pace. It's important that we need to be part of it, right? What are the influencers, right? Influencers, we talked about digital world. That's the first one. The exponential world. Exponential world is something like where people used to wait for an outcome to be seen, right? But nowadays people expect it. Can I get it today? Or I have seen many clients telling me, saying that it's as fast as yesterday, right? So that's what we are talking about, exponential world. The reason is the needs of the customer may change so many times in cutting across 6 months or years. So that is where we are saying that, okay, it is important that we are able to deliver it faster, and that is the exponential world that we are talking about, right? So it's the VUCA world. In simple words, it's a world which is filled with a lot of ambiguities, complexities, uncertainties, right? So there are a lot of things which are happening, and it is important that how we are going to manage these uncertainties, right? And how we are going to bring the transformation as we are in this world. Good. And the other key thing, right? Earlier the customer was not expecting too many things. This is a live example. But nowadays, each of the clients expect, okay, Earlier, if you look at the remote controls, it used to be low, medium, high. Nowadays, if you look at it, is temperature. Right? That's a very simple example. That is what we are trying to give you. And now the clients are much engaged than us. So they expect, okay, what is your speed? What is your fan speed? What's your fluctuation? How much fluctuation it can manage? Voltage, all of that, right? So it's kind of changing. So now, in essence, what people didn't want to hear, probably now everybody wants to hear about it, and people want to feel it as well, right? So how I can feel it, in other words, how I can relate to it myself, than waiting for somebody to tell me. That is another important thing. And at the end of the day, is it solving my problem, and does it make sense at the end of it, right? So that's where, if you are a technology expert, it's not only important that you are great in Java, but it is important you understand the business which is on top of it, so that you will be able to relate and make sure that we deliver what is best for everyone. I will talk about a very essential element, right? So typically, if you look at any industry, it is surrounded or centered around people, right? That is extremely important. And these are the four elements that we need to think about. One is the processes, right? We'll talk about processes. What are the skill set? What is the context in which you need to do? And what is the culture that we need to think about? Right? Let's talk about processes. The processes, the dimension of what is process has changed, right? Many of you still would have read about the SDLC process, or the water cycle process, right? But nowadays, it's more of an agile process that people want to follow. It can be shorter span, and we should be able to see the outcome in maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Typically, the life cycle of this agile runs around 3 to 4 weeks. If you look at IT industry, if you look at the other commercial industries, probably it has come down where people used to release a new car every 2 years, 3 years. Nowadays, you can see that people release new versions of car maybe in 6 months and one year, right? So that is what it is. To be agile, how can you make it faster? How can you build it faster? And imagine, we should never reinvent the process, right? And for us to be extremely good at not reinventing, it is important that we know how to deliver it, so that you don't have wastages, or in other words, you don't have rework, right? So that is what the process engine will help you build the constraint. The second one is what we need to think about, right? It's in terms of the technology. Whenever we talk about technology, we typically think about languages. We typically think about programming, but it is not just the programming, right? As a code, it is the holistic view in terms of the technology. It is your code, how you run the code, and where you run the code, right? I think you need to look at all this in a holistic way. And what is more important is, how do you bring innovation? One of the simple element or a technique that we all typically use is a design thinking process to bring the innovation concept within each one of you as an individual, right? So the design thinking concept is, in simple terms, you need to empathize or understand the pain points of the customer. What is the problem he is seeing? You take that, then you put it together, then you brainstorm, saying that, okay, how I can do this differently. And you have to be much disruptive in this thinking process. That is a design thinking process, and there are a lot of tools. For each of these steps, there are a lot of tools, and for bringing the innovation as an individual, as a team, there are a lot of tools which will help you to reach there. And finally, innovation is not something very sophisticated that cannot be dealt with, right? Start thinking about innovation in each and everything, right? And for you to be successful, the skills are extremely important. As an individual, I think it is something that you should look at from a technology perspective. Go beyond programming. Think about from managing the innovation. Keep it at the center of your heart. Doing whatever you are doing, think about innovation. And there are some very nice techniques that you can think about. Design thinking is one, but there are many techniques that you can think about. And the most important for each one of us, right, including myself, which I do in my day-to-day job, is whenever we talk about any problem, always come with a solution. How this will work? How can I make this work? Should be the way that you want to think. Than saying, okay, this is the problem statement, right? Oh, the roads are not good. Think about, okay, the roads are not good. So I feel these are the solutions. Start thinking in that direction. And then context. The context is more in terms of understand the domain. Understand the domain in terms of the area that you are in, whether whichever part of the industry, right? Understand it. Maybe you are not an expert, but understand it. And let's not become a generalist, right? Generalist is somebody who knows everything overall. So now if you look at in terms of what we look at in any individual, right? We look at people with T-shaped skills, for example, right? T-shaped is where everybody knows everything, right? That's the way we are looking at it from a technology standpoint. Then we expect Java full stack is another example that I can think about. But what is very important, right, in terms of context is go a little bit deeper in one or two areas so that you know what it is. So you'll be able to deliver meaningful businesses out of your technology. That is where it is. So that's why we say that understand the depth of it, which is go deeper to understand the technology, deeper to understand the domain, so that you can sense what is good for everybody. And then also don't stop only with the depth in terms of going vertical, go also horizontal so that you get a good view of the full picture. That is called as a holistic view. When you do something, obviously it's going to impact some other part of the organization or some other set of people. So understand both the depth as well as the breadth, so that can be done only by us as people, so that we can deliver better value. And at the end of the day, as a culture, what we should start thinking, many of you do it many a times, is what is it that I can do differently, right? It's not a BAU. I think one thing that each one of you should always think about whenever you do anything is it is not a BAU, business as usual. It is not business as usual. It has to be something different, and that is called as new ways of working. One of the classic example of new ways of working is remote working, right? Or working from home. And luckily what happened was, in the IT industry, it was so adaptable and the adoption rate was quite high. So 100% of the IT industry, when the COVID situation came, quickly it got changed, right? So similarly, the other industries started picking up today, right? So anything that you are doing today, always think about it is not BAU, how I can do this differently, and that is called the new ways of working. Second critical element is listen more. That's extremely important, and this is for you to understand the expectations of the customers, or else you will develop product A, whereas the customer's expectations could be some other product B, right? So let's not get in there. Make sure that we listen more and be entrepreneurial, right? So you can work in any part of the organization, but at the end of the day, the feeling that you should have is, it is my own business. How do I run it? How I can bring the digital solutions or the transformations into this to the benefit of the customer and to the organization. Always think like it's your own business. How I can make it better, right? So think about these four elements, and these are extremely important. And finally, in this today's world, you need to stand out, right? How you stand out? There are many ways that you can do it. Either you get to understand the technology space better, you understand the domain space better. You can choose any fields, but the four essential elements, these are the key for you to be very, very successful. And if you are very successful in these four areas, I'm very positive that you will be able to stand out wherever it is. And that's where we have seen so many eminent personalities coming out of India, coming out of a lot of other organizations beyond India as well. And it's because everybody is passionate about what they have done. They always felt, okay, I have to do it something differently. So that is nothing but your new ways of working. And always they are keeping their eyes and ears open, where all the inputs are being received, and people wanted to do something differently, and that's where people are able to stand out, right? So use technology very judiciously, and don't get constrained with only programming. It is larger than programming. The way you use technology is extremely important. The way you adopt it, the way you understand business, and finally you deliver it to the customer. I think those are all the critical components I would say that you should think about in this on this day, right? In this day, and not only today. I think every day when you look at any aspects, start thinking about how can I do this differently, and then on the lighter side, don't think that I'm learning C plus today, so I don't need to learn C plus. I can directly go and learn Azure, right? It's not that way. Fundamentals are important. Learn the fundamentals, then see how you want to evolve to meet the technology needs as well as the business needs, and then each one of you can be very, very successful. And I think many of the colleges, universities today are giving a lot of these opportunities. This is my point of view, and take advantage of these sessions. Feel free to reach out to people like me, who will be very glad to help you out in terms of any coaching and guidance. And thank you for listening. I know it's more one way due to the webinar concept, but thank you, Professor Ramesh, and thank you. Back to you, Arnie.
Yes, sir. We have a short Q&A session, question answer session for 5 minutes, sir. Can I post the questions?
Yes.
One of my friends have asked customer focus. They have quoted that. Will that affect the entire business domain, or is that a merit for entrepreneurs?
It is. I think it will. Can you read the question again, Arnie?
You have quoted that the business is becoming customer focused. So will that affect the business domain, or is that a merit?
Yeah. So it's obviously the customer focus is going to change the business domain for sure, and automatically business domain will drive a lot of technology changes, and it is certainly a merit. But what also happens is that not every customer change may be beneficial for the business, right? So that is where what happens in this kind of study, right, in the transformation journey, what we typically do is all these customer requests, we do a due diligence phase, and post the due diligence phase, that's when it gets transformed into certain implementation processes. Certainly it is a merit, but it goes through a sequential due diligence phase.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And the other one is, and can you just simply state how is tech and business related? A short definition or a short connection?
Yeah. So technology and business, for example, let's talk about, let's think about one of the examples, right? So let's take a Swiggy, for example. So earlier, what happens, you order food from, whether it is Sangeeta, whether it is from Ponusami, you order the food, they will come and deliver. And when you order the food, you have ordered the food, but you will not be able to understand, okay, whether it has started, whether it is being packed, what is the cost. Maybe you will get a rough cost, but a lot of things are black box in that model. So the transformation that has happened into that area is through Swiggy is one very simple example where you get the end-to-end service, where you know what you have ordered, and where you know what is the stage in which it is there, and where is it today in terms of when it will arrive you, and what is the feedback, right? So whatever was happening earlier as a very manual process, now everything is happened through something called app. That is the Swiggy app. So that's the transformation that you can see, where you order a food and then the food gets delivered to you. That's a simple manual transaction that was happening. That is a business. And then the entire business, while preparing food, everything is still the same. But in terms of the other subsidiary operational activities, everything is transformed through technology. That's where you build the application or the app, and it is beneficial to you. So that's where You see the business which is making food and delivering home is your business. Then you use the technology to build the app which is available in your mobile phone, and then you make the customer happy. At the end of it, the customer need to feel happy who is paying money for your business. So I hope this example is a simple one. Hope it.
Yes, that's nice. And one more question, sir. How to make people adopt to completely new environment, which is simple to adopt, but how to
New environment in what is it?
how to make people adopt to new environment, but if that is simple, then how to change their mindset as well.
Okay. See, adoption starts with you as an individual. How do you adopt it, right? I think the first thing that we should remember is, while I'm 50 years, but still, I used to read every day, right? I think never stop that learning. Continuous learning is extremely important. That is a very significant aspect to your adoption. That is point number one. The second thing that you need to do as part of the adoption is get a little bit hands-on in what you want to achieve. For example, you want to understand how this entire cloud transformation works. Obviously, you will not be aware of what is cloud, how this entire transformation works, but don't shy away from that. Be an integral part of that team who is going to do it. While you do the theoretical learning, also be with the team who is doing it, so that you get a hands-on. That's called as a shadowing, or things like that in the IT parlance. But what you should do is don't shy away. Get a little bit hands-on in terms of how you want to do it. So that is the second step that you should do. And the third thing, which is very, very important, is you have to be bold. Don't worry that you are going to make mistake, right? So don't worry about that. Just focus. And those are some of the 3 elements that you should think in terms of adoption. Continue your learning. Continue, go be an hands-on, and don't shy away from problems. Just be bold and face it, and that will help you in the adoption process. And if you are unable to do the adoption process, right? For example, for some reasons you are not getting the opportunity. I think in today's environment, there are a lot of courses that are available, which will give you a combination of this, and how you can get into this adoption process. And typically, the 3 that I told you is a practical way of doing things that can help in improving the adoption process.
Yes, sir. That's really nice to hear from you. And okay, we have come to the end of the session. And this technology made us hear from our expert today. And we, my fellow colleagues, of course, we are virtual buddies. Technology made us meet virtually. And the fact technology is not just programming, that's a huge thing of all those small steps. And we ought to continue to learn. Thank you, sir. That's enlightening. And standing out isn't a choice, it's a need. Thanks for the word, sir. That's a fruitful time hearing you. Stay safe, and warm regards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for Professor Venkatesh, and thanks all you. You have done an excellent hosting, and thanks Senthil for all the technological support. And one last thing to all the students, I know what is happening in today's live situation, right? Because my son also is in college, and he is going through all the online classes. What I see most of the time is he switches it on, and then he will be watching TV. So my only request to all of you is don't do that. Try to get whatever is best through the online courses. It will help you for sure at one given point of time. Enjoy this online COVID situation at home. That's good, but don't distance yourself from the learning process. It's extremely important, because the future for India is depending on people like each one of you. So with that, I will thank once again for all the student community, and very glad that I have talked to each one of you. And thank you, Professor, and thanks, Yarni.